now for the Black Firehouse podcast, the only Ghostbusters podcast that discusses props, costumes, sets, and special effects, with your hosts, Austin Young and Dan Harshman.
You know, it's just occurred to me we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
I blame myself.
So do I. Let's get ready. Switch me on.
Good evening, everybody. This is Dan Harshman for the Black Firehouse podcast, as always here with my good buddy, Austin Young.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today, Austin?
I'm doing.
We
Technical
are on
issues aside, I'm doing
technical issues aside. What were your technical issues?
good. My laptop decided to update right as we were getting ready to record.
Is that an issue, or is that your laptop trying to be good? Isn't that what it's supposed to do?
No, it's an issue. I hate this stupid thing.
I also hate technology updating on itself.
Perfect people to have a podcast then, right?
So we're on episode 3, Austin. How do you feel about that?
Pretty good. You know, Revenge of the Sith was really good. It's the best of the prequel trilogy. So, this one's sure to be the best of the first 3 episodes, right?
Just like the third Ghostbusters film was the best out of all 4 Ghostbuster films.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh man. So today we're going to be talking props as always, but last week we touched upon that new offering from fun.com, and man, we couldn't go a single week without the Ghostbusters collecting community embarrassing themselves as a collective. Have you seen the update from Hasbro?
Oh yeah.
The orange tip on the Hasbro Plasma Series Spangler thrower, and people are absolutely having adult-sized temper tantrums, and I don't get it, Austin. I'm not getting it. What are your thoughts?
My favorite thing about the whole thing is, it's not even supposed to be silver. It's supposed to be clear. Like, it's not even correct to begin with. So what's the big deal?
Well, not even that. I mean, what's baffling me is how many people I'm seeing complaining on modding forums. I'm like, The whole purpose is you guys modify this. Like, you're gonna take off that back plastic tape application. You're gonna change parts out with metal. You're gonna give it a new paint job, but that orange tip, that's the wrench. That's the line right there. You can't do anything with an orange tip. I
talked about it to so many people yesterday. I don't even remember who I said this to, but I said, God forbid you have to modify the thing you were already going to modify in the first place.
Well, it wasn't in the budget, and $5 and 5 minutes of silver paint is just that's just too far.
It's crazy, dude. I mean, I guess I sort of understand people that think, oh, it's ridiculous. It's a toy. It's not a real firearm. I get that, but it's the law. They have to do it.
God forbid the toy company making the toy have to abide by toy laws.
Exactly.
It's a hardship. I mean, it's part of being a Ghostbusters fan, man. We get these hardships. We're gonna have to persevere as a community. We're gonna have to just figure out how we move past Orangegate.
It's gonna be hard, but we'll get through it together.
Get through it. So we're doing something new tonight. We are actually having our first guest on the show. Are you excited about that, Austin?
I am. I'm very excited.
I am. Do you want to introduce them, or do you want me to introduce them?
I think you should introduce them.
I should introduce him so I can butcher his poor last name. We practiced this 5 times. It's hand. All right, so we have Jordin Johanson of the Alberta Ghostbusters joining us tonight, not to be confused with the Calgary Ghostbusters, which I know 90% of people do, because there's only 2 franchises up in Canada, I guess. Jordin, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can definitely hear you. Just want to make sure. I know that signal coming from the United States to Canada, it can get a little rough.
Yeah, absolutely. Our borders are a little tricky these days.
How you doing tonight, Jordan?
I'm excellent. Yourself?
I am doing great. So yeah, you are part of the Alberta Ghostbusters. Introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about who you are and where you come from.
My name's Jordan. I'm from originally from Edmonton, Alberta. I live in Calgary, which is our two big cities. Fun rivalries there. I founded the Alberta Ghostbusters along with a couple of friends back in 2011. I've kind of been in the Ghostbusters community, but a lurker since maybe 2006. Like my first Proton Pack was Norm Garrigan or Gagarin. Then I got a Multimedia Mayhem kit because Colin lived in my neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, old school.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Me and Austin are all about it. Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, but we'll talk about that later this episode. So, Jordan, as our first guest on the Black Firehouse podcast, we are today talking about your part in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I along with a couple of members of our franchise was given the incredible lifetime opportunity to actually work on Ghostbusters Afterlife, and a very small part, but
but still cool nonetheless. I mean, how many fans would have given their limb or firstborn? I mean, I have two children. You can have them both. They let me work on another Ghostbusters movie. That's super awesome.
Yeah, well, and it was just like a perfect storm of weird opportunities. Like, first off, they were filming in the city I lived in. Like, why would they ever film a Ghostbusters movie in Canada? Why Calgary? No, why not Vancouver/Toronto? The two places everything's filmed.
Right.
Why not Oklahoma, where the movie's set?
Exactly.
But I'm not bitter or anything.
I take it you're an Okie.
Yeah. I am.
Yeah, and then somebody in production knew somebody else who knew of our group and had seen some of our work at conventions and that kind of thing, and was able to get in touch. And suddenly, very, very quickly, we ended up working on the movie.
That is
2 weekends, kind of a couple months apart.
That is incredible.
Yeah, about a month or two apart.
That is incredible. And we're going to talk about, as the main segment today, the items that you worked on. Two of the props that Austin and I have a huge amount of interest in, which are the Sentry Proton Cannons and, of course, the Gunner Seat Proton Pack, which are both of really, really huge interest. So before we get to the main topic, of course, we're going to go into talking about what's on our workbench. So here we go.
What is that thing you're doing?
It's technical. It's one of our little toys.
The Proton Pack is not a toy.
I guess that's right.
Austin, what's on your workbench?
Rothko straps.
Rothko straps.
Rothko straps.
All right.
There's a
Why are you cursing your workbench?
Screen accuracy and all that. All the the Rothko aftermarket stuff being used on the Afterlife Proton Packs. And of course, because this is the first Ghostbusters movie we've had in the original timeline, where there are, the classic Proton Packs that are using parts that in theory are readily available. But of course, by the time we get around to figuring them out, they're discontinued or they've changed them. And so we're looking for older versions of currently available parts. And that seems to be the case with Rothko straps now.
So there's differences now in current on-market Rothko straps compared to circa 2019 Rothko straps?
Apparently.
That is frustrating. Well, I know you put me on to the variance in the frame itself, that there was a change in the frame design, and it just so happened that Amazon at the time had the correct Rothko frame. So here's a question for you. As you're delving in through straps and everything, set that aside for a second. You had mentioned our last episode that you were building your Phoebe pack using metal parts.
Yes.
So how is your confidence that a Rothko frame is going to adequately support a traditional fiberglass shell with metal parts and not snap?
Probably like a -10. It's one of those things that, I've already been scheming how I can take apart a Rothko frame, pull off those side brackets that have like the square cutout shape. Flatten one out, make a template, have some new ones water jet cut out of some thicker material, swap them out on some genuine LC2 frames, and then have a replica Rothko frame, but of a higher quality.
Are you going to be increasing the motherboard thickness as well on your Phoebe pack?
Probably. It appears that there's one pack that has like a 16th inch motherboard, but it seems like the rest of them have like 1/8 inch. I'm not 100% certain, but that seems to be the case. I'll probably go with 1/8 inch.
Jordin, you're nodding your head over there. Did you get any time with, like, I know we're gonna talk about the items that you built, but did you get time hands on with the packs
Yes.
that they used?
Not the Phoebe pack. The Phoebe pack wasn't around when I was, but I did take some pictures of what turned out to be the Zedmore pack, and I released some of that. Looking back on it, obviously, I wish I had taken more photos and thrown a tape on a couple of things, but I was technically working, so I did what I could. But yes, there were absolutely.
I don't want to get. You didn't want to get fired taking photos of things that weren't your job.
Exactly, since I technically shouldn't have had my phone.
Well, they can't fire you now, so it's all good.
Exactly.
There you go. So Jordin, what's on your workbench, man? I mean, you're a maker, you're a builder like the rest of us, right? Yes. I mean, that's part of the reason why you got dragged into the Afterlife party. So what are you working on, man?
Right now, in fact, just prior to this us recording, I'm working on Deckard's blaster from Blade Runner.
Oh yes. My gosh!
This will be my third one now.
Very nice.
Metal parts, not quite up to like my finished idealized one, but another step forward. And then in Ghostbusters news, I'm a sheet metal worker by trade. I'm working on an Extreme Ghostbusters pack that's completely welded out of 16 gauge.
Nice.
Satin.
Very cool.
It is very heavy.
As it should be.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But what a great pack to like make out of metal.
Exactly.
I mean, like out of all the different packs, yeah, it's got very simple geometric shapes, and once it's put together, they look good. How are you handling the scale changes in the Extreme Ghostbusters Proton Pack? Because even looking at real Ghostbusters, of course, when you're in an animation setting, things are going to change, proportions are going to change constantly. But Extreme Ghostbusters, holy crap, the proportions change just perpetually. How are you dealing with that?
So I initially started with the old Colin from Multimedia Mayhem plans. I had those still on my computer. And as I'm putting it together, I realize I'm going to need to beef up a couple of things because it is looking a little anemic. Like, I do like the frame being about 1 foot wide, the boxes being about 6x6, but the two, like, packs, like the one where the hose connects to the pack, and then, like, the one on top that has the tubes that kind of go at a right angle, I think I'm going to have to really beef up. There was one I saw not too long ago that had kind of more cartoony, kind of chunkier dimensions where like the pack looks like it takes up like half the space you do. And I feel like that's probably a little closer to like the spirit of the item.
Sure. And that I think sometimes is very, very important. I've seen some incredible real Ghostbusters builds, and scaling is always an issue. The Matt Burkett and Jack Dowd did really excellent real Ghostbusters Proton Packs, but they scaled them to the key drawings.
Yeah, so they were huge.
Where they were really, really big, but they were amazing. And then you have something like Shapeforge Props, which is Martin. That's the real Ghostbusters pack that I'm working on. He scaled his down to be more in line with what we see in the Ghostbusters movie. And I thought that was just a little bit more appealing. I thought the scale down actually worked a little bit better for me.
Are you a fan of the baby blue real Ghostbusters packs?
I am not.
Me neither. I have always had an issue with it, but I've always, kept it to myself because what's the point?
Matt, though, their paint application, they did that nice dark navy, and it's really, really gorgeous on those packs. They did an incredible job. There's a lot of really intricate custom aluminum work on those packs that a lot of people aren't aware of as well. Me, I'm kind of on that I can't decide what color I want. I know it's going to be a darker color, but anytime you see the real Ghostbusters pack, it always has the highlights on the side, and I'm almost wondering if I should enforce that and do a two-tone color throughout to get those highlight.
No.
Why?
Because that's dumb.
You're dumb.
I don't think it's dumb, but I do think you're just setting yourself for a whole lot of extra work and masking.
I mean, it's a whole lot of work. It is a whole lot of work.
I think that's an element that doesn't translate well to 3 dimensions. I think going with a darker paint scheme, a darker blue, and just natural light highlights, that's the way to go. Do a really fancy photo shoot with lots of colored lighting, hard lighting, yeah.
Now, what about the chrome paint jobs I've seen on a lot of real Ghostbusters Proton Packs? How do you feel about that, Austin?
I've never seen one chrome that I can recall. I
guess I should say more metallic than chrome. Chrome is not the right word. I apologize.
Metallic. I mean, that's a big thing that's up for interpretation, I suppose. I could see people thinking they're metallic, they're metal, they're bare metal. I could see them being painted gray, like that industrial gray color.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's an instance where you could maybe go two-tone with it. You could do most of it in the gray color and then have some bare metal accents that actually might work really well.
Well, there were, even looking at the color palette, again, we're talking about animation here.
Yeah.
But there are different shades of gray that they're using on the real Ghostbusters Proton Pack that I'm personally interpreting one as being, like bare aluminum, versus other parts being actually like gray.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the complicated thing about,
and that
working and translating animated props into real life.
And that's what makes it interesting too, is everybody's got a different interpretation.
Yeah, plus it's nice that not everything's set in stone. Like, there's no like Steffen's plans for a real Ghostbusters Proton Pack. You kind of get to make some creative choices on your own.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, excellent. So that's what's on our workbench. We're talking about that. We're going to go into our main topic now. We're going to go ahead and start talking about. We have a lot to cover: Sentry Proton Cannons and a Gunner Seat Proton Pack. Jordan, you ready?
I am.
Austin, you ready?
I was born to wear this stuff.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Hey!
Listen. You smell something?
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Why?
So, today, again, we have our guest, Jordin Johanson here, of the Alberta Ghostbusters, who got to work on props during Ghostbusters Afterlife, during principal photography up in Canada, which is really just an incredible experience. I know so many people that would have loved to have done what you were doing. So why did you get brought in? Why did they bring you guys in on that project? Like, what was necessary? What was going on? And I know there's a lot of hubbub behind the scenes stuff where they're saying that the props just were maybe not up to what Jason wanted on filming location, and there was just modifications that needed. Tell us about that if you can.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was the Gunner Seat. Now there was a design in mind for that Jason had. I'm one of like a small team. I don't want to sound like I fabricated or did everything.
Sure.
At some point I'll give them shout outs. I made a list so I wouldn't forget anybody.
Well, give them the shout out right now. So we're talking about like this whole team of really talented Ghostbusters fans that helped.
So just members of my franchise that helped out would be Ashley. She did a lot of paint, weathering, and detailing. She also designed a different Neutrona wand box that was ultimately unused, but now exists at her home secretly.
Interesting.
Ooh.
My good friend James was also involved. He was the one who recommended me specifically, which was great. He did a lot of the modeling. He also modeled parts of the Ectomobile that needed to be made.
Very cool.
Another friend, Sean, was brought on for casting talent. He casted a dummy version of the RTV that would stick out of the ectomobile, that couldn't eject because it was only half a body. Like it ended before.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was Dustin, who did electronics and wiring and also ran the rap party, which I also got to be tangentially involved in.
That is super cool.
And finally, for like Ghostbuster friends, is Rob, who worked on the Sentry wands specifically.
And he does lightsabers by trade, if I recall that correctly.
Yes, Genesis Custom Sabers is his company.
That is awesome. Yeah, we definitely want to plug him. I'm going to be reaching out to him because I have in my head assigned nicknames to all the different wands that were made on there. I don't know if you guys had names on them.
Not really. I do remember arguing against the one with the blue highlights because there's no blue on the Proton wand, and I
see that one's like my favorite one. Next to there's another one that's got these
the huge beefy capacitor.
That one is really cool.
Huge beefy capacitor is my favorite. That I nicknamed Saber because it looks like a lightsaber. The one with the blue highlights reminds me of the Men in Black 2 Noisy Cricket, so I nicknamed it Cricket. The one with the large rings on it, that one I can't remember what I called that one. Oh man, I suck at this.
You named it Shang-Chi.
Blaster. Shang-Chi. And then the one that looks like an E11 has like the Sterling front end, so I nicknamed that one Blaster because I'm a nerd.
No, looking at them, once you know that the guy who one of the principal guys on that builds lightsabers for a hobby, you can't not unsee it. So many of those parts are very, very savory.
It's funny because the first time seeing the movie, there's one really quick shot of, I believe it's the one with the silver rings around it. And I remember looking at that going, that looks like a lightsaber. What did I just look at? Was that a proton gun? So it's kind of funny to find out after the fact that they were put together by a guy that does lightsabers. Makes total sense.
It does. But it works really well. I mean, the aesthetics of the lightsaber going on to the wand works really, really well. So we're totally tangenting here, Jordan. So you got brought on specifically at first for the Gunner Seat, which I think is by far probably the most recognizable of the new technology incorporated into the Ecto-1. Very much real Ghostbusters, aesthetic going on, but bringing it into the movie. Tell us about the process behind that. You had mentioned that there was already some design work done on it.
So Jason, one of the original designs was possibly having cages around the individual components, and then that translated from Jason to he wanted everything to look like it was coming out of water. So he wanted all the cage to be at a singular level. And they didn't want it to just be a proton pack on a seat, which is why all the components were kind of switched around. That was actually built by cutting up a foam stunt pack with a hacksaw.
Nice.
Is that how all of those things were built? All the proton cannons and everything?
No.
Were they all cut up? Okay. All right. So we'll get into the Sentry Cannons because I obviously you could tell what I'm really excited about. So you guys were cutting up foam stunt packs to make this thing. Now, tell me about the wand. One of the things I had seen in the Ghostbusters making of art book was this really, really great little 4-panel shot of different ideas for the wand. And I'm not a production designer. I'm not the director. I don't get to choose what ends up in the final cut of anything or how it looks. But I gotta say, out of all the designs that were in the book, they ended up going with the least innovative and new. Can you tell us anything about that? Were you part of that design process?
I wasn't part of the process, but I did between the months of me being there, the original wand for the Ectomobile was white. It wasn't a black wand, and I argued against that quite heavily because it looked like it was plastic, and it was. I just thought it looked cheap. But it was already the slightly shorter wand with the shotgun grip. I had never got to see any other takes on it. It had already kind of existed. Fun fact, if you don't take it out of the box when the seat extends, you rip the cord that
Oh,
the hose
gosh.
that connects between the seat and the proton wand.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah,
now,
I
did
can
they
see
use
that.
the same kind of Neutrik connectors between the wand, the Gunner Seat wand, and like the Phoebe pack?
I don't believe so. I can't say for 100% because like all the lighting and stuff was done by effects team after I was done. What I specifically did was help with the layout,
Hmm.
build the cage, and then I basically kind of I did fabrication on it. Like I built it. I didn't do any like the painting, weathering. That was Ashley.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just kind of got to put things where they should go, glue them down, build the cage around it, and then I kind of handed it off to another member of our team.
Austin, I know you have questions, and man, if you don't stop me, I will Bogart this whole interview.
Well, I want to go back to, I guess, the original concept of the seat for a minute.
Sure.
So, I think it was you that posted some of the pictures. I don't remember exactly who, but there is a photo that was posted of the interior of the Ecto, and there's somebody, one of your buddies, I assume.
Yes, that would be James holding a foam version up against it.
Yeah,
Right?
full size pack.
Yes.
The paint job is totally different. It's way rusted out, really heavily weathered. And I assume there's another shot of a pack motherboard with the white wand that you mentioned previously attached to it. And there's these additional like little mounting tabs on the sides of the motherboard that I can only assume were originally supposed to be for the gunner seat to mount it into the Ecto. But I'm curious about that, if you have any insight into that.
So that the really rusty pack is actually the gunner seat. After it had been chopped up and placed onto I think it was like a styrene board, or not styrene, Sintra board that we had the chair from the Ectomobile, or one of, literally ratchet strapped to a table so we could kind of fit everything on, because it weighed so much. It had to be ratchet strapped, and we had to have stuff on the table, otherwise the table would tip over.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the actual gunner seat, because it got a full repaint after it had been chopped up and moved. All the pieces moved around, like putting the ion arm in the bottom right corner, the cyclotron beside it.
Yeah.
Who got to make those choices of the rearranging of the pack on there?
I did, and it's bizarre how much freedom I had. Specifically the Sentry Cannons, I got to do way more than I thought I ever should have, because I was just, Joe Blow off the street. They didn't know me from anyone. The first time we worked, we were under a lot more supervision than the second time, because they kind of knew that we knew what we were doing and could be trusted and left alone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was a lot of kind of like, what do you think of this? Yeah, if you think it's good and it looks good, we're happy.
Was there ever times in which Jason came in and oversaw what you guys were saying and gave notes on, hey, I want this like this or this like that?
No, so I worked on weekends,
Mm-hmm.
two non-consecutive weekends, and I think they were both holiday weekends. So for the first time with the gunner seat, it was us 5 in the building, plus the guy who was actually in production, who has a movie credit, who was our supervisor, and that's kind of it.
Wow. So there was a lot of freedom on the prop design. It sounds like there's a lot of the behind the scenes shots we see of Jason looking at mostly like Phoebe's pack. Mm-hmm. Is that really the only prop that he was emotionally invested in as a director, and everything else he was just like, hey, yeah, this looks like Ghostbusters, let's go with it?
I don't really know, since I only spoke with him like at like the wrap party afterwards, like not counting like Fan Fest for 2 seconds and that kind of thing. So yeah, I can't really say, like, he had the vision in mind for the gunner seat where everything was kind of level. Like, that was like a note I remember. You got to keep in mind, this is like almost 3 years ago at this point.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah.
So where was the bulk of the weight then coming for the gunner seat? Because you had mentioned that it was a foam pack that was cut up. The cage was that metal, or was that a plastic fabrication?
I think it was it plastic or wood. It was laser cut on a glow forge that we had running in the in like the little props area that we were working in, which we shared with Set Deck. Some of my pictures I think are taken in the Set Deck area. Like I posted a picture of the hot beverage thermal mug, which I never got to see in the movie, but it was there with photos and stuff.
That was a really interesting picture. I meant to ask about that. Like,
there was some interesting like stuff on the walls that I felt less comfortable taking pictures of. Like they had like tons of like reference photo materials for like Raise a Cult and that kind of thing. And I did get to go on that set at a later date, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point.
Oh, cool.
Very
yeah,
cool.
Definitely. We'll touch on that. You had mentioned that the Gunner Seat wand was plastic.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting because the Sentry Cannons are very, very much not. And
they are freaky geeky ones.
They are freaky geeky. I took one look at them and I already had heard water cooler talk, after production that RJ had worked on those. But the moment you release those photos, and by the way, that was like Christmas morning again for me. What was that, January 4th that you were able to drop those?
I can't remember the day. Basically, once I finally got the go-ahead from Eric, I was just like, behold, I'm giving back to the Ghostbusters community. This is everything I took, and I apologize. The only ones I initially didn't drop some that had like certain people in them, but that weren't like prop specific. And then I think some of those made their way out anyway, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so why did they end up using premium wands for these background things and then a plastic wand for the Gunner Seat?
I don't know 100% that plastic wand was the final wand. It just was the one that was like paired with the Gunner Seat at the time. The first time I worked on the film. But it was a plastic I want to say it was a 3D print. I'm not 100% though.
I have to imagine that it all has to be, to keep down on the weight, because if you're fabricating a plastic cage, foam pack, plastic wand, I'm sure it's a safety thing with the seat mechanism itself, trying to keep the weight down so it doesn't tip over.
I was told at one point that the seat didn't spin when it went in and out and just sheared the pack off at one point.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how true that was, but I was told that by a couple people involved higher in production than myself.
Well, so another question. We know there's at least 2 ectos, and then a third one that was cut up.
Yes.
Did you only build one Gunner Seat? Or
I
did
only
you build
built
3?
one Gunner Seat. As far as I understand, it was replicated for the other ectomobile.
Okay.
But I built like the first one.
Okay, so you built one, and somebody came in and built 2 more.
And that was built on a weekend where a shot was being filmed on the following Tuesday. So,
oh wow,
it was a very bizarre schedule. As a guy, that was the first film I'd ever worked on. I've worked on some stuff since that I can't really talk about. So like I didn't know if that was just normal to be like, hey, we're gonna film this next day, and we don't have something.
I mean, listening to so many behind-the-scenes documentaries on countless films, that kind of seems like that's pretty much the standard. We need something on the fly. We need it built 2 days ago. Can you do it?
So I wanted to go back. You had mentioned that the Ecto one, your assumption was that the Gunner Seat was replicated for at least one of the cars. I did have a chance to actually see one of the cars. I believe it's the stunt car that was in New York for the premiere. I believe that they kept the hero car, what used to be the Ecto 1A. I think that one stayed out in LA during the time of the premiere. And I have a photo of the back seat, and it looks like there's hydraulics hooked up for a Gunner Seat, but there's no actual Gunner Seat back there. So they were removable, I'm assuming, so that you guys could work on them, or if there were problems to get to the hydraulics and the mechanism underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get to see the Gunner Seat in action, like after you guys placed it on there?
Yes. Many months later, just as they had wrapped filming, we did a set visit with some members of my franchise who had also been involved as extras or other things. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they had you've seen some shots of where it's the Ectomobile and it says that's a wrap on the screens all around it. That was there, as well as the effects crew who kept bringing the seat in and out. We had met Jason at that time, and he'd given us some things to auction off, which we had done
Very cool.
later on, and presented him with like a little plaque, like every Ghostbusters franchise ends up
every
doing.
Ernie Hudson is the honorary member of all the franchises.
Exactly.
Hey, Ernie, it's time for you to start paying your dues. You're a member of this franchise. I need you $25 every year. Thank you. Come on.
Oh, 25. You guys go get on a flight.
That's 25 American.
Oh, never mind.
So that's like 50 Canadian. You guys are still in rubles, right?
Canadian kopecks.
Or is it loonies? That
is our $1 coin? Yes.
There you go. I don't remember in the movie. Does the gunner seat have electrics in it? Did it light up? Did it cycle and?
So at the time when I built it, no.
Okay.
The effects team was supposed to come in. I don't know if that ever happened. I've only seen Ghostbusters Afterlife like 4 times, so I'm slacking.
Same with me. We're not at the level that Austin is.
I did cut holes in the Sintra board or whatever. It would have been mounted on 4 lights to be fit in by effects. Fun fact: that whole thing is hot glued together. It was just hot snot, and then
wow, you were going back to your norm building days.
Oh yeah. After I'd glued everything, I looked over at like the guy, like I guess I could say Peter, who was like the guy in charge of us, and I was like, "So this thing's gonna like spin out, right? Like it's gonna split out. Do we have to do anything extra so like it doesn't fly off?" He's like, "You should probably like shake it a bunch and just make sure that like nothing goes off." So I'm like shaking this this seat over my head, not the seat, just like the board and stuff, and flexing it just to make sure that nothing flies off.
Stress test.
Well, any Pringles cans on it?
Oh no.
Although there are some things like that inside the Sentry Packs.
Ooh, okay. Austin, you had another question.
Oh, I was just going to mention that when Yes Have Some did their interview with Ben Eady, he talked about every time that seat came out, the bumper bellows got knocked off, and he'd have to run in and super glue it back on between takes.
Yeah. Did he talk about how he got an RTV ran over?
He did.
That had happened. I can't remember. I think it was the second time. That was a big running joke. Like, don't worry, we can just run it over and it'll look better anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Real weathering.
Did you get to interact with the RTV? Did you have your hand in that at all?
I got to play with it, but I didn't have anything to do with like its design or anything. Beyond like the handful of photos I got to take of it. I've known it was a Traxxas Stampede the whole time. I wish I could have.
You're just sitting here watching people on the workbench just circle the drain and.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We did a pretty good job before.
Oh, no, for sure.
Before Ben was able to kind of break his silence and really talk to us, and you, of course, able to come out and divulge all this great information. Of course, we're really grateful.
Oh yeah,
on how open Sony has been with the community on this. Definitely.
Like they were super chill about it. Like, because I took a bunch of pictures that technically shouldn't exist, and I was like, "Hey, Eric, like the book's come out, the movie's been a while. Like, my NDA, as far as I understand, is over. Can I release some stuff?" And I got to go ahead, and I just was like, "Here you go. It's January 10th or whatnot, and my NDA is over."
Yeah. So about that art book, the art book talks about the gunner seat, and it gives some really good artwork on it. Probably I would assume, drawings that you and your crew had seen going into building it. No,
actually, I didn't get any of that. The only kind of art direction I got was for the cannons.
Okay,
there was some stuff drawn up. I can't remember the correct term for it, but
so there's no artwork of the cannons in the book.
Oh, interesting, because I might have those somewhere.
Ooh. So why is it though? Why are we looking at something? I personally feel like the Sentry Cannons are the most interesting thing, technology-wise, new gear-wise, brought to Ghostbusters Afterlife. And at the same time, they seem to be what got the least amount of attention. Like, I understand, a lot of it came down to lighting and stuff, but I was expecting to see a lot more in that art book about them, and it was just like crickets.
Yeah, it was a weird thing to watch the movie too, because like we had spent literally a long weekend cramming so much detail into those and like changing things, and just like I was like, 30 seconds. And now I'll also hold a grudge against Paul Rudd for the rest of my life because, he broke one of my cannons and I can't have that.
Is that the one that he bends? When he bends it up, he broke it?
I knew that Paul Rudd was going to be up on that ladder, and I knew he was going to mess with it, but I didn't actually know that it was going to like shoot one at another. In my head at the time, like, because a lot of things were need to know, like, I actually didn't know that that it was Egon that was maintaining like the that whole temple scene. But I thought maybe he would just be like fixing or adjusting alignment, not
not blowing other ones apart. Now, did they blow apart one of the Sentry Cannons, like practically, or was that all post-digital effects?
So in some photos that I've come out, you can tell that the Sentry Cannons that are on the pillars are not like the hero ones. Mm-hmm. There were kind of mock-ups that were done. I think they were mostly foam with some other Greeblies slapped on. That is what I believe was blown up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how many Sentry Cannons did you work on? There's 4 in the movie, so 4 unique wands, 4 unique packs.
Yes.
On 4 different pillars. Did you work on all 4?
I did. When I first got there, so the Sentry Cannons were the second time a month or two down the line. When I first got there, they had just come in from LA. They were going to be shot on Tuesday. This was Friday night, or I think this was Saturday. And they were going to be shot on Tuesday because it was a long weekend, so nobody was working Monday. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to kind of change them a bit. Originally, I think you can see it on some of the pictures, they're literally mounted on a flat piece of metal.
Right.
Initially. The bases were something that we created. That kind of beefed them up and such. So I kind of got to do a first pass over them all, which was still to this day is one of those things I can think about. I'm like, I was just some guy. But one of them was covered
really
in...
cool.
Oh, it's incredible opportunity, and still one of those things that when I think about it, I'm like, did that really happen? One of them was covered with trap relays, like relays and sockets. It didn't make it to the final because I pulled them all off. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me as a Ghostbusters guy. That one is the one that has like the bizarre looking, almost arc reactor looking panel on it. So
yeah.
I was given the direction by my supervisor who worked for the movie, Peter. What would it look like if you were to pull the cyclotron assembly completely off? And I sketched something up, and I gave it to another member of the production, and then he turned my drawing into that gear-looking guy that you see with all the copper at the center and the wires that run in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a incredible moment for me, because I'm just, like a guy who was like, you know what? This is what it looks like underneath the cyclotron. If you were to completely remove the sync gen and all this part, this is what I think it looked like. Here's my little sketch. And then the next day he came back with that completed.
That's super cool.
That's
awesome.
That's why that one is like the most like physically empty, is because it had a bunch of relays and that kind of thing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I drew that up. It got put on. I also found in like a scrap bin some Hammond project box or something that I used to make the injector tubes that go into it. So it looked kind of like an ion arm power cell. It was a really weird bodge job, but I feel like it came out all right. The idea online chat. So that's the one I believe that's on the right side of the pillar closest to the entrance of the set, which doesn't help you guys at all, but there is a separate cyclotron mounted onto the column that cores run to. So it was like, okay, the cyclotron had to be removed or swapped out at one point, and that's where it once was the thought there.
Well, and I think what's really fascinating to me about these the cages that you guys put together, and each one maintains kind of the main elements of the pack, but their layout is rearranged. I noticed even on like the gunner seat, the ion arm orientation is correct, but the end cap is flipped upside down, and then there's one of the ion arms. I think it's an ion arm on one of them that's got. It's got like these bunny ears, like
rabbit
these
ears,
jagged.
yeah.
That was. I love that detail. So cool.
That's actually. I was so excited to find out that my favorite wand, was the companion piece to also my favorite pack.
Yeah, the one where it's like the full cyclotron sync.
Yeah, so it has the synchrotron spacer on there, and I'm looking at photos right now. It has the bunny ears. I'm assuming you guys were also using the Fincher cables on these.
Yes, we had rolls of Charles Fincher cable. We had Aaron Mack labels. We had freaky geeky ones. I was just like, oh, there's so many things. I feel like those are sponge face light kit, the sponge face circuit boards, because they did light up in the same manner.
Okay.
But I wasn't involved who made the. Like,
well, I know AJ, who has obviously a ridiculous amount of experience with sponge face boards, actually found at one point when the Ghostbusters were knocked down and they're getting up, and there's a top-down scene in which they're getting up next to the Ecto-1 again. You can see one of the Proton Packs is cycling through the on sequence for a sponge face light kit, and I'm just like, nobody else does their nobody else does their light kits like that I'm aware of. So the pack with the huge capacitor on it, again, my favorite, and that's the one that has the pack with the bunny ears on it. Yes. What is?
Let me just quickly open up my documents folder where I have all my pictures.
Absolutely. It's so gorgeous. There was just a couple things that I was curious about. Which one of the original photos that comes out, and this is the one that has the digital calipers on it. There's these weird like nubs over the switches on the wand. Was that what is that? Is that something that was swapped out, or?
So those are like RCA plugs for like a television.
Okay.
Like or a game console or something like that. I didn't have any real input on that. I think at one point they were going to put cords in them to like how they were triggered. As far as I know, they're strictly aesthetic. Okay.
So as originally they were going to do RCA plugs, and then at some point it went back to regular switches, or was it the other way around?
There were cables that ran all throughout the set to each pack back to that PKE. And a weird, funny anecdote is I was talking with the guy who who's actually involved, one of the people involved in production, and they were picking my brain about if it made sense Ghostbusters wise, and I was like, it makes perfect sense if like the guy who built this wasn't like super familiar with the technology. The wings come up, they hit these little leaf switches, and they fire the proton packs. It's a very low tech, very smart way of doing it. And then I got the reply: the person who built this was incredibly familiar with the technology. Because now I know it was Egon. At the time, I was just like, oh, if somebody had to rig this up, it's a great way of doing it.
Okay, so that's how the PKE works, and the whole functionality of movie magic is supposed to be the wings come up because the portal's opening.
Yes.
It closes the circuit, and that causes all the wands to fire and cross the streams. That's cool. That's cool. That there were so many little things like that I don't know if they were communicated well enough in the movie that I didn't pick it up on my 4 watches. Maybe Austin did. You've seen it, 15, 16 times now?
I think I'm like 21 now.
Wow, that's sad.
No, it's not.
That's nowhere under the bus, huh?
That's nowhere near where I wanted to be, by the way.
You aiming for that big 5-0?
I don't have a set number in mind. I just was hoping to have seen it a lot more by now, but
Oh,
shit happens.
that's true. What about there is obviously we're looking at one of the Daylome resistors now on the wand, which I thought was a great touch. I loved seeing new Greeblies
Mhm.
paired with old ones. I thought that was a genius way of including original Ghostbusters designs with new things. And we talked about this last episode, in which I loved the design work on Afterlife as far as, yes, this is still Ghostbuster stuff. Yes, so you're still seeing things that you would be familiar with, if you're really into the props, but you're also seeing new things, which I really quite loved. What is underneath that heat sink? I
I
noticed that the heat sink is spaced out, and there's something underneath there. I mean, it could just be a block of wood for all I know.
I honestly don't know. The way it worked is I'd worked on all the bodies of the proton, like all like the cannons, like the bodies and the
Mhm.
bases that we had built, and then on the last day we were there, I think it was late Sunday night, Rob came with all the wands.
Okay. Oh, so
Um,
we're gonna have to get Rob on here. That's what you're telling me.
yeah, he and another guy involved in production, Shannon, were the driving force between with the wands specifically.
Did you guys choose which wand would go specifically with each pack? Was
Yeah,
that
actually,
something that production chose, or what?
no. When we were doing this, this was I think I left around 3 in the morning because I had to work at 6 or 2, and I was not the last to leave. But we actually installed them, which technically I think breaks some rules because I think that's construction or set deck. But
Oh
we
no.
took I think it'll be all right. But we took the packs, the Sentry Cannon bases, and we like drilled into the fake stone walls, and then put the straps across, and then mounted the proton ones. Using Home Depot was the only thing open on a holiday weekend. Pipe fitting adapters. Like I at one point had to take a Rust City van with a little Rust City parking pass to Home Depot, which I can't believe they trusted me with, because an embarrassing story is on the first day of the second time I worked on the movie, I hit a car in the parking lot. And a lady came out of the production office and was like, "Oh my god, that's Jason's car." And I was like, "Please tell me it's not JR Jason." They're like, "No, it's like some like location scout Jason." So unfortunately, most of my first paycheck for working on the movie went to repairing a 2004 Subaru owned by Jason.
Hey, the real payment was the experience.
Yes, plus I have the paycheck framed,
Yeah,
and in the memo field one says cannon, the other says seat.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
I
Gosh,
have a very specific question about a particular part that we have to address.
Sure.
Where did the answer the call piece come from?
You picked up on that too.
So yeah, those came from LA. A lot of the base work came from like the prop company in LA. Outside of me like changing wiring, moving parts around, adding the bases and filling those up with Easter eggs and parts. Those were already on there, and I was just like, at one point, one of the things that this is like the most original part on here, because a lot of the parts were Ghostbusters parts. I was like, well, actually, that's from Afterlife, or that's from Master the Call. And he's like, what? And I like pull up a picture. I was like, see here on the bottom left, that's this. It's like,
That's amazing.
yeah. And I was like, we're keeping it. I'm not. I'm like, I'm not going to pull that off. It's going to really annoy somebody in the future.
Yeah, that was my thing. It's like, is this some sort of Easter egg to rile up some people and ruffle some feathers, or
In my mind, it was definitely.
I love that. I'm so glad it's in there.
There was a running line throughout those weekends where like we can't upset the internet. Like we have to make sure the internet has nothing to complain about. Like everything needs to make sense. All the wiring needs to be consistent. Certain things, and I was like, yeah, no, I got that. And then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna keep these.
You should have put some orange tips on those cannon.
Right? Real missed opportunity. I know at one point they were supposed to have kind of a try 3 gun ears. I don't believe they were installed by the time I left, but I think they were printing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Look,
you
if
can
they make
see it in one of the pictures of the wands. You can see one on the table.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go dig in the background now.
Yeah, it's
I
the one where
remember
he's
seeing
measuring
that.
the orange light on the top of the wand with the
Okay.
big capacitor.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, so the resistors and stuff that you guys are using, are they real? Are they resin? Is it a mixture?
It's a mixture. I
Okay.
cast a bunch while I was working on stuff um, on the Sentry Packs.
And what about the components of the packs themselves, like the crank generators and the cyclotrons and all that? Are those
Those are mostly fiberglass ones on the Sentry Packs. They were fiberglass and cut on, and either cut or mounted on these existing
so?
boards.
Were they? I guess if you didn't actually if they were fabricated in LA, you may not know, but some of it looks like they may be like just straight up resin poured into a pack mold, and then some of the larger pieces that need to be hollow, like the cyclotrons and the sync generators, may be actually like full shells that have been cut down.
I believe that was the case. Yeah.
Okay. I can imagine that some of them are probably pretty heavy.
Yes, they were all quite heavy. I found when we went to Home Depot the longest possible screws I could. I think these were like 6-7 inches long, because the pillars that they were mounted on, the two that weren't on the scaffolding, were foam with a wooden core, and I had to be able to go through 3 to 4 inches of foam to get to that core to support the weight. There was a bit of worry because we just leaned them over to drill into them, that when we stood them up, we were going to tear a huge chunk of foam out and really set production back.
It's foam that can be patched up in no time. It's not a big deal. It's funny you mentioned the screws. I was looking at some of the wand pictures earlier, and I noticed there's these just huge screws sitting in the background. I mean, they're so long. I was like, that's an obscene amount of screw.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they made screws that long.
Yes, you did. You just put it out of your memory because you've never had to use it.
That's true.
So, okay, so we talked about the Gunner Seat pack. We've talked about the Sentry Cannons. What else did you get to do? Anything else there? See anything cool?
I saw a lot of cool stuff. One of the kind of fun things I got to do was there is a damaged cyclotron. It's, I believe, part of the pack that's the one Paul Rudd aims at the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to fill that full of electronics and greeblies. Because it looks like it was replaced, so it's like a busted one sitting next to the pack, and then there was another one. So that was kind of an interesting thing. There's a Star Wars figure inside one of the bases of a Sentry pack, like just some random B guy that we painted up. I have pictures of that, which I don't think I've posted. I got to get on that. And
what are your favorite Easter eggs that you snuck into those packs?
One of our members' TK numbers is on one of the outer rings. Our logo is inside the pack, where all the electronics and such are inside the base. My Alberta Ghostbusters president at the time, business cards inside one of them. On the one with the big cyclotron, we all signed the inside of that. I'm trying to remember. Cool. I think we put a bunch of shout outs that are commented out in the code of the Arduinos that run them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we try to get our little fingerprints all over everything.
So so they had lights in them. Did they have the same kind of light setups as the other packs? I mean, obviously we're looking at a much different space constraint, so it's not a bulb on a spinner plaque. I'm assuming,
which wasn't on all of them.
Right. Yeah. I understand there were some problems with keeping that stable and
quiet.
And they eventually went into a LED ring.
I believe that was, but it wasn't something I was involved in.
Okay, so these ones you never got to see light up?
I was there with the effects guy while he was doing like the soldering. Like that was something that Dustin did. He worked with electronics with the effects guy who mounted these little light kits. Because I had to always make sure that there was a way to get a light into it. So if it was all mounted on a plate, I would drill in to the other side or cut a hole.
Okay.
Like grinder.
So these ones, from what you understand from Dustin, did they have just the light rings in them? They didn't have. They didn't even have
light rings. I think it was just LEDs, like the Nano Bright or something Arduino base that could just flicker in sequence or whatnot.
Oh wow, so they're even closer to traditional lighting
Yes.
methods. Okay.
In fact, with traditional methods, one of the Sentry packs, I just use split loom as the strain relief instead of, because we only had a
Very
limited
nice.
amount of those connectors, those strain relief connectors. I have a bunch of the. I think we figured out where they are, but I have like a bunch of photos of their model numbers because I was like, these are super cool. When I first got there, I was like, I'm gonna need to update these on my pack one day.
Yeah, just like everything else, they've already changed and they're slightly bigger now.
Yeah.
When you order them from Amazon or wherever, you get slightly different ones. It's like, oh, okay, well, fantastic. Now, so in the background of one of these pictures, I noticed there's one of them that has a GB2 Spectra Strip ribbon cable.
Yeah, it came with it.
Okay.
One of the things I did. I think they actually all had Spectra Strip.
Okay.
And I changed them out to Charles Fincher cables.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask about, was if they all came with GB2 cables, or did you guys leave one in there as like an Easter egg, or what?
No, I think they all came with GB2, and I think by the time they were like ready for filming, they had all been swapped out, if I recall properly.
Okay.
Because we had like a huge roll of Charles Fincher cable, which I think I snagged a piece somewhere. I was like, this is one of my mementos.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Charles gives those out as samples, doesn't he?
He started giving out cuttings of his cable as kind of like a business card.
Gotcha.
So what else? You had mentioned there was a couple other things that you also wanted to talk about on there. We've talked about Easter eggs and stuff in those packs.
Oh yeah, so the other two, so I got to work on the movie those 2 times. We did a set visit just as filming wrapped, where we met Jason. We took the picture might be out now of us and a bunch of producers in front of the Ectomobile. We got to see the set for Raise a Cult, which was unfortunately being torn down at the time. But and during that set visit, all of our phones were taped, all the cameras, which is a shame because I loved all the little Easter eggs on like Ray's corkboard. He had a little corkboard. It had like a bunch of paranormal kind of themed business cards and like flyers and posters and that kind of thing.
Where like one of the notes on there was it, pour out your life story to strange 12-year-olds when they call.
Yeah, exactly. Exposition dump immediately. Yeah.
How cool was that though? I mean, walking in, even though they were striking the set, I mean, that has to be a cool set to walk in. Did they build that? They built that up in Canada, obviously.
Yeah, in a soundstage on Calgary. The interesting thing is the same building was also where the Gozerian temple was, like the temple that we worked in and installed these things, and fell asleep while standing up and work and installing. So when we went to go open the door, I was like, oh, I know this is the temple, and it was just gone. It was just it was empty. There was the Ectomobile, the screens, and then it was bizarre how fast it had changed. Like it had been probably 3 weeks at that point from when we did the Canon stuff.
Wow. And do you know where the Cannons are now? Did they just go back to Sony Archives?
They went back to Sony. When I was at the wrap party, I guess I talked to the guy who's in charge of like getting things back to Sony, like into their archives and having everything. And it was interesting conversation of like, you didn't take anything, did you? And I was like, no, of course not.
So what did you take?
Nothing. He just told us. He just told us that he took nothing, Austin. Gosh.
Nothing but photos. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing
he was
but
able to sneak out
memories.
some photos and memories, man. It's the friends we make along the way. Stop asking questions like that.
And yeah, so the last kind of thing we did after the other set we got to see was the big wall where Podcast and
Phoebe.
Oh, Phoebe. Jeez. Sorry.
You're fired.
It's all right, man. It's
Phoebe,
like
like
6
talk
o'clock
about
there.
the Gozerian, 6:14. The Gozerian madness. That wall was like 25, 30 feet tall. Like it was bizarre. Like to stand in front of, because it's the temple doors. Like, and I knew that, so it's just like oh, I wonder how that fits into the movie. That'll be cool. I assume that's the outside of the temple I was working in, but all right.
See, that's something else that's got to be strange is, getting to work on this and getting to see things and to know absolutely zero context for any of it.
I think you can see it in some of my photos, but when we're working on the temple set, Ivo Shandor's like coffin's just sitting there. He's not in it. There's no dummy in it. It's empty. But I'm just like, oh, all right. I guess we needed a place for selenium. Maybe this is the mine. Like, I was trying to together. Seeing the years, I was like, okay, first Gozerian incursion. I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to put this together. And then it also makes it interesting because of certain things that were filmed or like talked about being filmed that aren't in the movie. Like perhaps a broken PKE meter, since it was weathered as if it were metal and breaks as if it's plastic.
Yeah. That's a big mystery that I'm waiting for somebody to solve.
Yeah.
It's in the movie for one shot when Phoebe walks out of the house, she's holding it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's some sequence somewhere that's missing.
Right.
Well, there was an enamel pin that came out that kind of hinted to it, that a terror dog chews it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was told, funnily enough, I have a crew hoodie because I'm a lucky guy, and I was wearing it at a local thrift store, looking for junk as I do, and the proprietor was like, "Oh, you worked on Ghostbusters?" I was like, "Yeah, I did some prop stuff." Like, "Oh, we sold them all the fake flowers for the funeral," and I was like, "Interesting." Was that filmed? I don't know, but I'm like, that's super cool.
I feel like there's 2 hours of this movie that are just sitting on the cutting room floor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like in one of the pictures I released, it looks like a weird octopus like thing. Like it has like a clear dome and then all these weird dials and stuff. I have no idea where that thing is in the movie.
Yeah, I was looking at that photo because you had mentioned the trap relays, and I saw that too. It has all the bases for the IRR relays on there.
Mm-hmm.
I just
it was just sitting on a shelf in like the prop area.
It may be hidden somewhere in the lab in the background.
It was interesting, like the first day, like seeing like there's just RTVs and traps. One of the things that I wish I had taken a photo of was the trap pedal, because like it was in summer 2019. You're like, oh, they moved the relay to the side, so now it's not sticking straight up and can get caught on things, or just seemed like a row of Aztec death whistles.
There's a lot of funky stuff going on with that trap pedal, and that's like one of the pieces I think that we really haven't gotten good shots of, which is a shame.
I'm foaming at the mouth to get pictures of those.
Yeah, I was able to talk to the guys involved, and I got that one top-down view, but that's the only one that I know of that I have access to anyway.
Somebody's got something.
Oh, yeah, it's somewhere. It'll turn up again 20 years from now. Going to visit Sony Archives, we'll find it in a box someplace, and they'll be like, "Oh, thought that was for Men in Black 7."
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I got to do Ghostbusters Afterlife related was I got to go to the wrap party. Dustin, one of our members, owns a production company, and through his schmoozing, he was in charge of running the wrap party. So I technically was working, but it was also my birthday. So my job was the Ghostbusters remaster was coming out. I think we got it a week early and a PlayStation to run it. And the wrap party was held in the old Space and Science Center in Calgary. And they had a huge planetarium. So we, of course, played the Ghostbusters video game on the planetarium. And
That's
I
awesome.
stayed in the planetarium for the whole event playing Ghostbusters. And I started like the game when the event happened. And I ended at the cemetery, like the Central Park Cemetery.
Were you stuck in the cherubs?
Not quite, but I was about there. And it was funny because like people would come in and be like, "Hey, do you guys want to play? Do you want to try?" Like, and 90% of people didn't, except for Logan Kim.
Of course,
Logan Kim got taken away by his mom, I think twice. Like all the kids played. Like Finn played. McKenna played. McKenna is like the nicest person.
She's such a sweetie.
She met me like one time for 2 seconds and remembered me, and I was just like, "Hey, hi."
Well, you know where she gets it. She gets it from her mom, who's as equally sweet and kind as her.
Yes.
Because when they were filming the CBS Good Morning segment at the Firehouse, her mom gave me a little Stay Puft action figure, and it sits on my desk, and it just makes me so happy. And like, there's times where I'm like, oh, I should have gotten McKenna to sign this, and I'm just like, nah, man, McKenna's mom gave me this, and that makes this super cool. I should have gotten mom's signature on that, but oh well.
Yeah, and that was an incredible 36-hour day. I drove home with my windows all the way down because I was afraid I'd fall asleep at the wheel. But yeah,
well, if you went out having worked on a Ghostbusters movie.
Exactly, so. And leaving like the wrap party after we packed everything up, all the truss and lights and sound. And
so, how about when finally everything came to be? You got to finally sit down. And you saw the premiere at the theater that gets blown up, I'm assuming. Did you attend that showing?
So I was at Fort McLeod with the Alberta Ghostbusters, and we were selling merch and taking photos and stuff. But there's literally 50 members of the Alberta Ghostbusters right now. I think we were offered 2 or 4 tickets, so we declined just because how do you choose? And
right.
Why not? But I did see the movie the following, I want to say like 2 days later. There was a cast and crew screening in Calgary. So I got to see it surrounded by extras and prop people.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so I sat with like all the people we worked on props to, and like when the seat comes out, we're all like, yeah, we're all pointing at the things we did. When they go to the temple scene, like we're all like, me and Ashley were like sitting side by side, we're like vibrating because like she did all the weathering, all the she did like 90% of the painting. Like a common call during that was like, paint lady, Peter broke it, because our supervisor would take a piece and be like, you know what, this looks good. It's not beat up enough, and he'd just throw it on the ground. Be like, all right, that looks a little better, but you're gonna have to repaint that. We're like, okay.
And now we got to fix it too.
Yeah, it was it was a great time, and then saw it, of course, like 2 days later when we did the Alberta Ghostbusters screening, because being 50 members, you can't get everybody into a cast and crew screening either.
Sure.
So then we had all of our friends and family, and then I saw it once in IMAX just because I'd seen every Ghostbusters available in IMAX at that point.
Well, that's fantastic. So, I mean, your final thoughts on the movie, though, overall positive?
Oh, incredibly, yeah. I really liked it. I obviously can't judge it objectively. I'm biased because I'm involved.
Sure.
But, I mean, it had everything that Ghostbusters movie 35 years after the fact ought to have, in my opinion.
I mean, I still remember saying that as long as I saw an original Proton Pack on screen and heard the original Proton Pack start up, that I would like it. And I got it. So,
and you got
I'm very
cool
happy
startup.
with the end result. Yeah, the startup sound was definitely super cool. Well, wow. So that's just a hell of an experience there, Jordan, and I'm really, really thankful that you were able to sneak those photos, because again, when you released them, and of course, big thanks to Sony and Ghost Corps for allowing you to release those, because that was like Christmas Day for me. Just seeing the original packs, or original packs, I say that with air quotations, but was supposed to be the original Ghostbusters Proton Packs. That was the real treat for me. We had seen a lot of Phoebe's pack, but getting to see what the changes were to the packs themselves was wonderful, and definitely solidified the build direction that I want to go. And then getting to see just how much went into the Sentry Cannons. I mean, an incredible amount of work, incredible amount of detail that unfortunately gets lost on screen. But then again, that's how it always is. I mean, there's an incredible amount of detail on the Proton Pack that gets lost in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, like all those warning labels are super cool, but you can't read one of them.
No, none of them. Yeah. None of them.
So, do you have plans to build your own Sentry Pack for your personal collection at any point?
Well, so we do pretty large booths at our local comic expos where we raise funds for the Children's Hospital of Calgary and the and the Stollery Children's Hospital in Edmonton, and we have like truss and lights and screens set up. So we've been talking about having them built pointing like in the center of our booth or something like that.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. You got to do it. Screen accurate.
Of course.
Screen accurate.
I'm actually working on one of our members' Proton Packs right now, just to help him out. And I keep telling him, like, you can say this is built by one of the prop makers from Afterlife.
Okay, so diverting from Afterlife, what's your personal setup? I mean, like, what's your pack like? What do you prefer as the base? Are you a 3D print guy? Did you go traditional fiberglass?
I have a Vincent Nordone 330 shell. That's
very
I'm
nice.
an idealized guy.
Okay.
I don't like the sloppiness that the original packs had. I do understand that some people really like that. Like when you're talking about like the Tom Cook patches, like on week 1 there, I like the nice crisp clean,
which is fine. Absolutely.
For all the props I build, generally, because I'm not super confident in weathering, I'm getting better. I worked on a Mando blaster that was nice and weathered, and I was happy with mostly. You're never 100% happy with anything you build. You just gotta stop at one point, and then you say it's done.
Yeah. I mean, so did you? Was it a Vince shell that you got and built out, or did you do a commission? I know he did commissions for a little while.
No, I built mine up. I got it. It's like sitting just off to the side. You can't see it, but
there it is. Gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh no. So yeah, no, I assembled all the parts over a year or two. This is pack number 3. So like I said, I started off with the old Norm plans, my cake pan cyclotron and my Pringles can end filter. Then we had actually built a buck in around 2011, and we made horrific castings. We tried to paint resins on. There was a contaminant, like it didn't hold paint, and then that was it was the worst. And that was the one that I built that had all the Multimedia Mayhem Colin stuff, because he lived just up the road from us.
Oh wow!
It was really convenient to have a Ghostbusters supplier in the province. Unfortunately, he moved to the other end, and I've lost contact with him.
I think everybody
I've wondered
has.
where he kind of disappeared to, because he just sort of vanished.
It was interesting. He went off a bit of a Dan Aykroyd style deep end of conspiracy theories, and then moved out to the boonies.
He had a hard time evolving with the research. He had a really hard time evolving with the research. Because for a time there, Colin, bless his heart, I mean, he just made some great stuff. And then he made some not so great stuff, and he didn't take the,
and he kept getting recasted too.
He did,
which is the most bizarre thing.
It was. I'm like, this is not what I would choose to recast, but okay, you got it. But for a time, he was definitely one of the first custom manufacturers of parts. So there's definitely a miss for him. So we're coming up near the end of our show here. So I love, Jordan, that you kept mentioning that you did Norm Gagnon packs. So
that's how you start.
Well, it's great because we're obviously talking about props here at the Black Firehouse podcast, but we have Norm Gagnon as our guest for next week.
Oh
yeah, so I'm
cool.
Super excited to make that announcement. He is actually a local Virginian. He lives in Northern Virginia. I live in Southeastern Virginia. So we're going to be doing a take back to the past, kind of talking about where Ghostbuster replicas started next week. But again, I just wanted to give you my biggest heartfelt thanks for the photos that you released, the time you're spending with us, just the contributions to Afterlife. I mean, really, hands down, my favorite part is those Sentry Cannons, and I'm really, really stoked that you were able to make yourself available to us. I know we're on episode 3. We're such a big deal now. I mean, we're massive, but I mean, to us it is, to this niche group of builders, this is a big deal. This is a really cool thing for us to be able to have, access for you to answer our silly, nitpicky questions. Austin, final thoughts for the show today?
I mean, I think you pretty much summed it up. Yeah, I mean, just thanks for coming on and chatting with us, and
that's a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to hear the stories and get some insight. So we really appreciate it.
Well, excellent. So Jordan, any last thoughts before we take this one out?
No. Sorry, I was put on the spot there and I panicked.
That's all right.
Do you Do you have any kind of social media or anything that people can follow you on, that you post builds on or anything?
Not really. I post builds on like Facebook and Instagram. I'm Agent Slade on Instagram and Jordin Johanson on Facebook. After any time I post like anything or I get tagged to anything like this, I get like 150 friend requests. Like when I posted those pictures, my phone blew up for about a day because people comment on them or message me and ask things.
I still remember when it got out who Ben Eady was, and I had spoken to him, and I had invited him to the workbench, and I didn't immediately friend request him. And I was just like, "Hey, man, I just want to see if this is something you're into." And then, finally I did. And Jordan, if I haven't already, I definitely will with you, because I'd love to follow your work and vice versa. But I always feel bad. It's like, hey, not trying to be pushy. I'm definitely interested in what you're doing. But man, sometimes when you have a flight suit in your profile photo, I'm like, I don't know who you are, but okay.
Yeah, no, Ben's great. He also lives in Calgary, so we nerd out over props at times. You really got to check out his work with foam. His foam mail is amazing.
I will definitely. Yeah, I know he's been really gracious enough to first release a lot of his TikTok answering questions to Spengler's 1984 workbench, which has been just really, really gracious of him. He's a super, super nice guy. And I'm glad that he is not so full of himself, that he is able to take our group as it is, because we are definitely, the workbench is definitely the group where, I worked on the movie. This is what I'm answering, and somebody else is like, well, actually, sir, push up the glasses. It was this way. And he goes, you know what? You know more than I do. So he's humble in that way, and I like that.
There were times in like some of the group chats with like people involved in production and stuff where we were like laughing at how fast you guys would find something based on like a small screen grab or a trailer or a picture somebody took on a cell phone that they shouldn't have. Of filming. It was actually really funny.
You assume, sir, that we have lives.
I mean, I'm a dyed True Blue nerd too. I get it, but it was just it was amazing to be on the other side of it.
That's awesome.
I've always wondered what it's like for people involved in production that may get a peek inside our crazy, obsessive minds. Like are they appreciative? They're
appreciative and they don't want to disappoint you. If truly deep down they care and they don't want to fuck up.
The props did not disappoint me. There's not a bit. I think the only prop nitpick that I can come with on Afterlife is I don't understand why there's still a green lever on the Gunner Seat wand.
Yeah, because it doesn't extend.
Because there's no extension there. And I do wish that they had taken one of the more adventurous designs for that particular wand, because there were some really cool ones.
Agreed.
But outside of that, I mean, like, the sound mixing, I mean, just the attention to detail. I wish they had chosen the Venkman hero to base everything off of instead of the superhero, just because it made a Aberration Proton Pack seem like it was the baseline for all the builds, and I was just like, but I mean, that's so far beyond nitpicky. I mean, that's something that, like, to get hung up over, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because it's overall such a beautifully designed movie, and obviously we know why, because Sony was nice enough to bring in True Blue fans and be like, hey, make this look like Ghostbusters. And if that was their only mission, man, they hit a home run and really knocked that out of the park and made it look and feel like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, excellent. So, guys, we are at the end of our time. As always, with my friend Austin Young here. Thank you so much for listening to the Black Firehouse podcast. We are releasing every Tuesday onto Spotify and our RSS feed, and hopefully soon we'll also be on iTunes for your downloading pleasure. And of course, you can catch us on YouTube every Friday when our episodes release there. You can like us at Black Firehouse Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is Dan Harshman and
Austin Young
saying go out and build something.
As a duly designated representative of the city I order you to cease any and all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or to the nearest convenient parallel dimension.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call.
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
2 in the box! Ready to go! We be fast and they be slow!
Ray has gone bye-bye, you guys. What have you got left?
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump. For what purpose? To go into business for ourselves.
Boy, the superintendent's gonna be pissed.
We're ready to believe you!